Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, you guys already know what it's going to be. We're going to be going over Major 5 of the CDL, the final major of the season as we head into champs. Then we're going to talk about kind of each team's outlook with that review going into champs, kind of talk about what they look like, positives, negatives. Then, honestly, after that, it's not a whole lot of stuff we have left to do. We're going to talk about regular season awards like Rookie of the Year, MVP, but those are honestly pretty wrapped up. I think we know who's going to win Rookie of the Year for sure. MVP, maybe a little bit more of a debate. And then we're going to do something a little different since it's a little bit of time before champs. We don't want to just do our our bracket predictions right away. Going to give ourselves a little bit of time to think, marinate on the bracket, and maybe make our predictions like that week right before champs. After we get a little bit of time to think and, hear what's coming out of the camps and scrims and stuff and how everybody's looking. So take a little bit of time on that. If you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. We just passed the 990 mark, so we're right there. I think we're less than 10 away from that 1,000 goal that we set. So if you're listening, watching, and you're not subbed, drop that sub. We'd really appreciate it. If you're on the audio platforms, drop a follow, drop a 5-star review. We appreciate the support, and let's get right into it. Brock, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good on this fine Monday. It's nice out. Didn't have to work today.
Oh yeah,
great.
Yeah, and
good tournament overall.
Yeah, we had an interesting tournament. It was good for some matches, but some days were a breeze. There was a lot of 3-0s this weekend.
Yeah,
a lot of 3-0s. It was I would say a pretty unexpected tournament, given that our favorite to win the tournament didn't win a map.
Yeah, I definitely was kind of shocked, really.
Yeah,
by the outcome.
Let's start there. We're gonna talk about. Okay, so we're basically gonna skip over like our teams that didn't make champs, like London. Shout out to London though; they did at least make us a little bit entertained. They knocked out Breach, and they did put up a little bit of a fight against Thieves. So shout out to London. Then you had LAG. They went out 3-0 to our tournament champion Subliners. That'll maybe be the last match we ever see the Gorillas play, as that'll probably be switching ownership and organization. And then who else? We got the Vegas Legion. Unfortunate, but they did bow out.
They did put up a fight
Subliners as well. Yeah, sad for them. Hopefully Clay returns for next year. I'd really love to see him back. He's still got it. And then where am I looking here? Who's our last team that I'm missing? Oh, Florida. Valiant effort from Florida. They 3-0'd OpTic. What a little bit of a banger for them to end their MW2 season.
Definitely.
Didn't win a map after throwing OpTic, but
beat OpTic.
They did beat OpTic. I thought they were gonna have a chance for a second to make a top 3 run when they got to match up against Minnesota. Not like an absolutely gauntlet team to match up in winners round 2. I thought Florida was gonna have a little bit of a magical run there to top 3 potentially after they beat OpTic.
Yeah, definitely. They're all playing pretty decent, pretty good.
Capsule had a crazy event. He played very well. But that's basically it. Just want to mention those 4 teams, but I mean, not much to talk about. Their season's officially over, so don't really want to spend any time on them. Let's talk about OpTic. We started talking about it. We'll talk about OpTic and Boston for our champs teams that got eliminated right away. I guess we could also talk about Surge because they were also eliminated in dead last. So 3 teams that are headed to champs finished last. Interesting that 3 of the teams that weren't headed to champs made it out.
Yeah.
But talk about OpTic first since we mentioned them. I tweeted it. Is this potentially, I'd have to really go back and think about it, but is this potentially one of the biggest upsets in COD history? They lost to LA Thieves and losers, so that's like, I get LA Thieves is a very good team. So that's like not like a crazy upset, but like the fact that they were the tournament favorites. They certainly weren't like a guaranteed win or anything like that we were saying going in, but they were the favorite. And they don't win a map. Is that one of the crazier upsets or shocking results you can remember happening in COD in at least a very long time?
I think, yeah, definitely. Just since they were definitely the favorites, and they went 10-0 in the last 2 online stages, and then second at the event, and then just come out and have an off day, I would say.
And it's like, even if they were to lose, I would have like expected them to lose from a standpoint that their search and destroy fell off or something, or they continued to struggle in control, which they did, but they lost hardpoints. Like they got dominated on their best map. Fortress Hardpoint might be their best map in mode, and Florida dominated them on it.
Yeah.
It's just so weird. Like I would have expected it to be through like, they were really good at hardpoint, but just were getting Neslo'd. That's how I would have expected them to lose to Florida at least.
Yeah, I definitely get just one of those days where they're not flowing, nothing's going really right for them. Can't pull it together, really.
And I don't know if you feel the same way, but the writing kind of seemed to be on the wall for me. At least once they lost to Florida, I was like, ooh, you got 3-0'd. Maybe you're a little bit in your own head. Composure's lost a little bit, and you got to fall down. You don't have to play London or a struggling Surge or LAG down there. You get the draw of Thieves, which
Yeah,
I don't care that Thieves went 1-4 in this online split. We all know when it comes to LAN, LA Thieves are a very good team. They are not an easy out.
yeah, they're definitely different on land,
Yeah,
no
so
matter the circumstance. Yeah.
that was shocking. I mean, Dashy, I heard Doug talking about it. I listened to a little bit of the reverse sweep, not the whole thing, but I heard Doug talking about it. And he was saying like how Dashy tweeted, like, I just don't know anymore. And he was like, I don't like that tweet. And I was kind of on the same page. I was like, sometimes Doug can over exaggerate things a little bit, but I was like, I don't like that tweet at all from Dashy either. It's almost like, I get it. You're going to be emotional. It would be weird if he wasn't emotional after
Mm-hmm.
losing. But like, that's almost a tweet of like that somebody on LAG would make, where it's like, you just couldn't win a match all year. She's like, I don't know anymore, man. Like, I don't know what to do. But like, if you're Dashy, you're OpTic, you're coming off 10-0 in the last two onlines. You're coming off back-to-back seconds. You had a bad event here, but the tweet, I don't know anymore, a few weeks before champs, it's like, if I'm his teammate, I'm looking at that like, dude, like, lock in.
Pulled
We got
together,
champs
yeah.
coming up. We're still a top team. We had a bad weekend, but we're still a team that could win champs. Like, lock it in. We can't be losing full just because we lost one match or two matches and had a really bad tournament. I get it. Like, you're gonna be down, but like, I would
Mm-hmm.
like if we kept that behind closed doors and not like start tweeting about the struggles, because you know what that does. Even if like the team doesn't care, if I'm a competitor, I'm seeing Dashy tweet that. I'm like, oh, okay, OpTic's in their own head. Like, this team's compromised. It maybe gives me a little bit of delusional confidence against them.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I granted the team that they're playing at champs first round Boston might also be a little bit of compromised
Mm-hmm.
after this past weekend. But like, if I'm Boston, I'm looking at that like, oh, there might be some trouble in the OpTic camp. Like, I'm using that as some sort of motivation, even if it shouldn't be. I'm gonna like convince myself in my head it is to try to get myself an edge.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe it's like a little kind of a wake up call since they're dominating so much, you know?
Yeah, and we could, let's say we're 3-4 weeks from now, and OpTic is the world champions, and we're probably gonna look back at this as a positive. If that's the
Yeah.
case, is like, hey, if they would have got another second, maybe they would have taken the foot off the gas or something, and something would have happened. But or it's going to be the opposite. They're going to finish top 8 or top 6, and it's going to be like, man, this tournament really crumbled. But like, yeah, who knows? We might be looking in a couple weeks as, wow, this woke OpTic up. They locked back in, and that's the reason they won.
Yeah. 100%.
To me, that's how you got to look at it, right? You got to
Yeah.
just look at it and be like, hey, we got smoked. We got to lock back in.
Yeah, if we got to go extra harder practice, but I bet they already were and all that jazz. But if they weren't, now it's time.
Yeah, but also at the same time, if getting top 12 is the only thing that can motivate you as a pro to get ready for the world champs, like the world championships, you got some other issues. You got to be able to lock in.
Yeah.
This is your career. You should have the passion to want to win that world championship.
Definitely.
But OpTic, just a weird weekend. It's hard to even talk about it because like they just overall it was just a bad weekend in all ways. I think like if you actually look at their stats too, it's not like, I mean, obviously they got 6-0 map count. Their stats are probably not going to look great for any of them, but I'm pulling up just the major 5 stats for OpTic here, and I'm pretty sure like I think Dashy was over a 1 because he actually looked good or at least decent in a lot of the matches, but like, yeah, it was Hook had a .62, Ghosty with a .68, Shotzzy with a .78, and Dashy was best on the team with exactly a 1.
Yeah.
I mean, Shotzzy had the best hardpoint KD on the team at a .79. It's rough.
Definitely won't win you the tournament.
And really, the only reason Dashy had that 1.0 is because that Expo control against Florida, he fried.
Yeah.
And he had a 1.35. But yeah, rough tournament for OpTic. Who you want? You want to talk about Boston or Surge?
Talk about Surge.
Yeah, it's just Surge, man.
They're chalked.
Yeah, I'll talk more about like maybe the issues because we're gonna do that report card for each team's regular season at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So I'll maybe talk more about like some thoughts overall on their season, but they also get drawn into the brutal gauntlet of a bracket at champs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess the positive from this weekend is at least they did make champs. Like, not like they did anything to like help themselves make champs. I mean, they got 3-0 by Vegas, and they could have locked up their spot by beating Vegas, and They get 3-0'd. Rough weekend. The one thing I'll say about Surge is a positive going into champs is we've seen this team in Vanguard this year get absolutely smoked and look like they have no life, and then come back and look pretty good.
Mhm.
So, like, I don't know. Like, we've seen them get smoked and bounce back. I think there's a world, I don't know, maybe you disagree, but there's a world where I could see them bouncing back. The issue is, I mean, their bracket at champs is
Pretty
it's
hard.
a little rough.
Yeah. No, I
They get
definitely. I
they
could
get
see
Faze.
them. I don't really see them winning, but I could see them making like a top 4 at champs.
Yeah, and we always talk about how they play Faze tough. So I could see them coming out. I mean, I'm not going to be picking them to beat Faze because it's just way too bold to do that. But I could see them coming out and shocking the world and forcing a map 5 or something on Faze.
Yeah.
Like they do a lot of times.
They did secure champs, so they have a few more weeks to practice unlocking it, and whatever problems are they have, figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, if they do end up making a run at champs, it's probably going to end up being a loser's run because I mean, if they make it to like winners final somehow, they would have had to beat Faze and then either Ultra or Thieves. So that is
teams.
a brutal bracket.
Yeah.
For them. But yeah, it's the same thing. It's like, do I have faith? No, not really. Because first of all, their bracket draw is tough and they look chalked. But I will say they have a lot of chemistry. They've been together for a long time. That is a factor here that could be a positive. They have a lot of chemistry and have bounced back from struggles before. But yeah, rough stretch here for the Surge to end the year. They're if there's a definition of limping into champs, this is it. They are limping into champs. They are barely crawling there.
Yep.
Shocking too. You know who had the worst KD overall on their team this weekend?
What was it? Was it Pred?
Yeah, Pred had a 0.78. Sib had a 0.95. Mac had a 0.88, and Accuracy had a 0.81. Once again, grain of salt because it is one series where they got 3-0. It's not like it's a large sample size.
Yeah.
It is one series, but obviously, we know that this team is not going to win if Pred has a 0.8. Let's just say that.
Yeah, definitely not. Need Pred to be like a 1.3.
Yeah. But I'm still excited to watch them at champs because, you know, we always joke about they have Shaq and Kobe. At any moment, those two could make a series close.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Boston quick then. Rough weekend from them. You lose 3-2 to Rocker. Big win for Rocker. And then you go down and you lose 3-1 to London. That is rough. That was London's first LAN win this entire season. So very, very, very tough look for Boston. This team, they might even be making a roster change before champs. You can't technically pick up anybody new. You can only sub in people that are already under contract. So I believe that's only Nero, actually. Like, I don't think like Doug or like Snoopy, because I think those guys are like on Breach Academy, like they're paid for to go to the events, but they're definitely not all actually like signed as substitutes.
Yeah.
Doug might be.
The only one I could really see would be Doug, if he is.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they're not subbing in Doug.
Yeah, they should though.
Yeah, imagine. He would be the one, but I think obviously Nero is under contract. He is actually like a sub. He could be subbed in. Maybe they make a change, but this team, they don't look like they can make a run. The one thing I will say for them is they always have played OpTic because they match their crazy quick pace and just like Ego Chow flying around style. So like the one thing I will say is maybe with their matchup in round 1 being OpTic, that could be something where they make noise because they've played them somewhat tight at times this year.
Yeah, with their pace, yeah. But
So
even if
that's
they,
like one positive, I don't know.
yeah, even if they do make a roster change, it just seems like they stay the same no matter what, really.
Yeah, it's just like they just like can't. They have the talent. They just like can't close things out. They're just so inconsistent.
Yeah, and then it's like don't really have ice.
At the same time, if they could somehow put it together, they do like Vivid, Kremp, Awakening, Beans. These guys are like mechanically skilled enough to compete with any team. It's just they just can't put together. And I like the formula for success for me at champs for them is pretty obvious. It's like you look at them, you see the mechanical skill, and you see a lot of search talent. Like Vivid, First Blood Machine in search when he's on. Awakening can really be good in search. Like Cold War and like MW19 and everything. Like Wake was a force in search at times if he can get to that. And you know, Beans with the sniper also always popping off. Like this team seems to have like that Neslo type mentality with the searches. At least I know their control can be rough, but like they seem like a team that should be able to like find their niche in search, and they do have like the Slayers that they could find wins and respawn. That's like their formula. It's just the consistency factor isn't there, and that's why we see them getting dead last.
Yeah.
But they do draw maybe the easier side of the bracket, although with New York looking like they do, who knows if it's actually the easier side having New York and OpTic on your side.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So that's it for Boston. Unless you got anything else, we can move on to our other teams that were eliminated next.
Ready to move on?
All right, which for our teams that are in champs and losers round 2, people that got eliminated, Vegas obviously not in champs, and then London not in champs either. So we go on to our top 6, where LA Thieves bowed out at top 6. I guess like I don't know too much to say for Thieves this weekend. It's kind of like, you know, you had a rough online stage. We see that all the time from Thieves. You 3-0 OpTic. You keep that dominance over OpTic, which to me is a big thing because I can definitely see a world where if Thieves are in winners finals, I think there's a very real possibility OpTic is the team they could meet. It seems to me like it's going to be OpTic or New York from that side of the bracket. I think you would probably agree with that. It's probably going to be one of those 2 teams.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be Boston or Minnesota on there. So there's a decent chance they meet up with OpTic in the winners finals, and I think it was big to 3-0 them to maybe keep that mental edge.
Yep.
The biggest win of the weekend for Thieves for me. And then you 3-0 London, take care of business. You get 3-0'd by Ultra, but I'm not worried about this Thieves team. It's still the defending champs. I still feel like they can make some noise over there on the winner side of the bracket at champs.
Yeah, I'm not too worried either. I kind of figured they'd come in this tournament, win a couple matches, and place like top 6, like you said.
Yeah, I truly do believe, though. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I believe that like OpTic falling to them was the biggest blessing in disguise. Because the fact that they, after beating them in the last final, then they came out and 3-0'd them, I feel like that's just got to be such a mental edge. Like, OpTic's not obviously going to be actively thinking when they get on the stage, like, man, we can't beat this team, because that's not how a competitor thinks. Like, you don't just get on the stage. Even like Faze, they've lost how many in a row to OpTic? They're not getting on the stage. Simp and Abezy aren't getting on the stage like, oh no, it's OpTic across the stage. We can't beat these guys. That's not what's going through their head. I promise you that.
Yeah.
And it's not what's going to be going through OpTic's head if they end up matching up with these. But subconsciously, back of the head, might be sneaking up in there when you're not even actively thinking about it. But it might be sneaking in there like, man, we just can't beat this Thieves team.
Yeah.
So it's good to establish that dominance.
I'm sure when OpTic lost and Thieves saw that, they're a little more motivated.
Yeah. Rather than playing a Mutineers team.
Yeah.
I got nothing else on Thieves, though. It's honestly just kind of like a clockwork. Like, they finished top 6, but I'm not going to be shocked if we're all of a sudden seeing them in winners finals or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Just something about this team. It's like you can never count them out no matter how bad they do.
No, I mean, we've seen Octane in a couple champs grand finals, and obviously won it last year. We've seen Kenny in 3 of them now, World War II and BO4, and now last year. Like, we've seen a lot of these players step up, and I trust them to step up in big moments. To me, these are all clutch players in my eyes, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do at champs. They got a tough bracket, but I believe in them. I'm never going to go into a series thinking like Thieves can't win this.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah. All right. Then we got our team that bowed out in 4th. That was the Toronto Ultra. Shout out to the Toronto Ultra home crowd, by the way. They were electric all weekend for their squad. The city-based thing, say what you will, there is a lot of negatives with it, but I really do like how when they go to a team city like we saw in Minnesota, I really do like how the people show up. Like, we saw Minnesota at Major 2 last year. The fans were way louder for Minnesota than they were when they were playing OpTic. Like, there was more Minnesota fans in the building, which you would never see before. OpTic's always dominating the fan base. So I love to see that. I thought the Ultra fans showed out big time. Thought it was amazing. I love to see it. So shout out to them. Ultra also, honestly, a pretty good weekend. They beat our eventual tournament champions in winners round 1. Put up a valiant effort against Faze, but fall. Then they take out Thieves. Like, they played a gauntlet this weekend. I mean, the teams that they've played were Subliners, Faze, Thieves, and then Subliners again. Tough matches.
Good teams.
Yeah. I mean, they played our tournament champions twice, Faze and Thieves. Like, all teams that have won events. Yeah. They didn't play a single team that hasn't won an event this year.
I definitely thought they were gonna beat Subliners and winners or losers.
Agree. I thought when Faze dominated Minnesota in winners final, I thought we were going to see Ultra beat Subliners and then Ultra beat Rocker, and then we were going to see a Faze Ultra final.
Yeah.
I honestly thought Faze was going to win. I thought Faze would beat Ultra in the final going into Sunday.
I definitely didn't have Mr. Subliners on my card.
Yeah. They're always on there. It's like you got Hydra. They could win, but yeah, I agree with you. I thought Ultra was going to lose to Faze in the final as we were heading into Sunday. That's what was kind of...
Yeah, the home crowd buff, I thought, just figured put them over the top, at least to get to finals.
Yep, and Ultra, another team that the only reason I'm worried about them going into champs is because of their bracket. It's just playing Thieves first and then probably playing Faze second is a brutal bracket.
Tough.
But I really feel like whoever comes out of that top side, I'm maybe revealing some of my champs predictions, and maybe I'll change them by the time we get 2 weeks from now or whatever when we make the predictions. But I really feel like whoever comes out of that top side of the bracket is probably going to go to finals. They're probably going to win the winners finals because they're going to go through a gauntlet. Whereas, like, let's say New York wins and like OpTic gets upset. New York might play Boston and Minnesota.
Yeah.
Make it to winners final. Not as much of a gauntlet as it is, say, Ultra beats Thieves and then beats Faze. I feel like they're going to have a lot of momentum where they could end up making it through the winners side of the bracket. But I'm not worried about Ultra at all. This team is very, very, very good. They play pretty fundamentally sound. The one thing I liked that I saw out of Ultra this weekend was Hecz, even Insight at times. I don't know what their overall stats ended up being. I can, go look at that. But like, I saw Hecz bringing it up in the slaying department a little bit at times.
Yeah.
I mean, on the weekend, this is crazy to see. Their overall KDs, Scrap at a 0.96 as their leader. Insight 0.94, Kleenex 0.85, and Hecz 0.87. So Kleenex was actually the worst in the team, although at times it seemed like he was popping off. He really struggled in S&D, though. So overall, like, they all had a negative KD in the event. But once again, like we said, they were playing... where is it here? They were playing Subliners twice, Thieves, and Faze. So, like, you're not going to have probably crazy stats playing those teams.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of close maps and stuff where you might be getting outslayed. But I saw at times a Kleenex that was popping off. Scrappy was obviously popping off. I saw Insight making clutch plays in S&Ds. And I also saw a Hecz that picked it up in the slaying department here and there and played well in search with a 1.11. So, like, Hecz and Insight can pick up the slack a little bit on the slaying sometimes and become a little more consistent in that department. I like Toronto to be able to compete with top teams.
Yeah.
And their control is still just so good at times.
And their teamwork's pretty damn good.
And we always say, a lot of times when it comes down to champs or Sundays and stuff, even if it's just majors, like, the teams that are the best at map 3 tend to have a lot of success, and you can make an argument that Ultra is the best at control or right up there. So I do like the fact that Toronto is such a good control team because it's always a weapon to be able to have, because that's obviously always going to be a swing mode. Either you're down 2-0 and it starts the reverse sweep, or obviously it could be you're closing out a series up 2-0, or it's 1-1 and it gets you that momentum to have 2 cracks at winning the series in 4 and 5 if you get up 2-1. So I like that for Toronto. That's a sleeper pick going into champs because of the fact that they are so good at that map 3.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we have Minnesota, our team that I guess probably shocked a lot of people, bowing out in third. They go 0-6 map count on Sunday. Maybe had a little bit of an easier road to get to finals, some people would argue, as they did only beat Boston and Florida to get there. But you know what? You can only beat who's in front of you, and they clutched up and made their way into champs when they had to do it. So shout out to Minnesota. I definitely think that this team, I feel better about them headed into champs than I did before this weekend.
Yeah. A lot more, feel like they're as a team confident with them.
And I do think a couple more weeks of practice, getting attached, back used to this team. I think they could shock some people and come out and put up more of a fight against Subliners than they did this weekend, getting 3-0'd. Like, I think they could shock some people. I still probably lean towards Subliners in that round 1, but like I think Minnesota could come out and put up a fight. And the one thing they have, I trust Attach and Bance. Those are 2 veterans that you can never count out. This team is a sleeper because that bottom half of the bracket, like we said, it's not nearly as tough as the top half at champs. So Minnesota has a little bit of sleeper potential because they do have those veterans on their team. I feel like they aren't right now, but I feel like with Attach and Bance and Cammy, like, I feel like there's a world where this team is like that EG team from World War II where they just lab their search and destroy.
Yeah.
and lab their game modes and get really organized and search and like try to be like the NYSL team at this event. Like, I'm not by any means saying I think Minnesota is going to win champs or anything, but I feel a lot better about their chances to maybe make some noise than I did 5 days ago.
Yeah, I fully agree. And just Tetch get his slice of pie. Get a piece
Yeah,
of the pie.
he definitely. He thought maybe for a little bit this weekend he might when he was in winners finals.
Yeah, but Patch and Bench, Cammy, Fame, I'll trust them. Champs.
Yeah, I think that they could make some noise. I like the team. Obviously, I'm one of the teams I'm probably going to be rooting for at champs. We always talk about it, but I like them going forward. I feel better about them. And then we have our two teams, so we can wrap this up here, that we're in the finals. Faze, unfortunately for them, another series where they can't close it out. It really comes down to that Asilo search.
Yep.
Up 5-2. You got to close that one out, and you probably win this series then. They go down 3-2 there. They go up 3-2. Obviously, like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, then they would have won 4-2. Maybe the Asilo control goes different. If they're up 3-2 instead of down 3-2, you never know. Things change. Nerves change. Who knows? Maybe they do close it out in 6. Maybe it still goes 7. Who knows? But Faze, once again, they finished first place for the 4th straight time. They've been first every year in the CDL. Like, I still strongly believe that we will see Faze in the grand final come champs time. They've never missed it. Feel pretty strongly that they'll probably still be there. I'm not worried. Subliners, though. Obviously, the team that improved their stock heading into champs the most of any team.
Yeah, let me tell you, did not have this on my bingo card. That's for sure.
Yeah. Especially winning 3 searches over Faze in the final.
Especially the comeback 5-2, especially in Faze's better maps.
Yeah. Shocking. Amazing weekend from Subliners. A great losers bracket run. I will say, I strongly believe that Nameless calling it the greatest losers bracket run in COD history is completely and utterly faded.
Yeah.
Great run. Don't get me wrong. If you make a run from losers round 1, that is a great run. Regardless, you could play the worst teams the entire way, but making a run from losers round 1 all the way to winning a tournament is a tough thing to do. Don't get me wrong. However, they did play LAG, Vegas, and Florida in their first 3 matches. 3 teams that didn't qualify for champs, down in losers. Then they beat a very good Toronto Ultra team and beat Minnesota, who, was also on the brink, but had a good weekend. So, shout out to them. And then they do beat a very good Faze team, obviously.
Yeah.
Through like almost all search and destroys, which is also extremely tippable because that's a very good search team.
Yep.
But let me tell you, it's not the greatest loser bracket run of all time. We don't even have to debate that.
Yeah. Might be the one that we went to.
Yeah. Might have been the one that we went to last year with LAG making that run. Obviously, Seattle Rise World War II, where they won 2 best of 5s against EG. That one comes to mind. That was a crazy run as well from losers round 1. But yeah, it's definitely, whenever you make a run from losers round 1, it's something. But in the CDL era, it is also just different. Without the pool play and the losers bracket run, it's just a little bit different to make it.
Yeah.
In the CDL era, a little bit of a shorter run. So shout out to New York, though. They improved their stock, and they're a team, obviously, because we've seen it a lot where a team that wins the last event right before champs ends up winning it all. So New York is certainly on a lot of people's radar to potentially go back-to-back, as we saw last year with Thieves.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely could.
All right, so that's it. To recap the tournament, it was a fun weekend. It was crazy how many 3-0s there were. I mean, wow. Like, in losers round 1, 3 of the 4 matches were 3-0s. Both were 3-0s in losers round 2 and 3. And then the losers final was a 3-0 up in the winners half. 2 of the first 4 matches in round 1 were 3-0s. We had a 3-0 in winners round 2, a 3-0 in the winners final. Like, 3-0s everywhere. I hope we're not seeing that at champs. I want to see a lot of game 5s at champs.
Yeah, let's just get the 3-0s out of the way in game 5s for champs.
Yeah, hopefully that's what they were doing. So moving on, though, the one thing we want to talk about before we do report cards for each team in the regular season, regular season awards. Honestly, Brock, unless you have some crazy takes or I have some crazy takes, I don't think this will take too long to talk about. I mean, the rookie of the year is probably the biggest shoe-in ever. It's easy. It's scrappy. I mean,
yeah, MVP won a tournament.
Yeah, the only debate was Ghosty, and I think the only way that Ghosty really could have taken it over was obviously OpTic had to win this weekend to match 1-to-1 championships. And honestly, I think Ghosty would have had to have like a 1.2 and win MVP.
Yeah,
because like let's say Ghosty drops his 0.95 typical like good, dirty work type player and Shotzzy wins MVP or something, I still think you give it to Scrappy because they both have an event win. Scrappy would have the MVP of the event, and the overall stats lean heavily towards Scrappy, and he was on the team the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
I think even with a win, Ghosty might have not won it, and now obviously with him not winning a map at Major 5 and Scrappy having a nice run to Sunday, having the event win the MVP, it's very clearly and obviously Scrappy. It obviously has to be. And thankfully, it isn't fan voted because if there was fan votes involved, Ghosty might win it, and it is not deserved. The Rookie of the Year is definitely Scrappy.
Yep. All year has been the Rookie of the Year, but for a little
Especially
bit there.
He's also probably going to finish top 5 in MVP voting. So
yeah,
he is definitely your Rookie of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
But shout out to Ghosty. He had a fantastic rookie year as well. It's just Scrappy had an MVP caliber year.
Yeah.
MVP though, this is more of a debate. Going into this weekend, it wasn't locked up by any means, but it really felt like Abezy had a pretty strong hold on it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree so.
It felt like he had a pretty strong hold on the MVP, which he certainly could still win it. I'm not one of the people that think it's like completely locked up, but I think the MVP after this weekend is Hydra.
Yeah, I do think he gets the 2 wins versus the 1 wins.
And the argument can be made that people I've seen are making is that Dashy didn't win it last year when he had the event win, whereas Cellium did win it and he didn't have any event wins. Obviously, Faze got a bunch of seconds. I could see the debate there. I can see your point, but at the same time, they both have event wins. However, Hydra has the 2. I think the debate would be completely over if Hydra had won MVP of Major 1.
Yeah.
But it was Kismet that obviously won that. If you just look at the pure numbers in terms of overall KD, it's a 1.17 on the year for Hydra to a 1.07 for Abezy. I will say take that with a grain of salt because the role that Abezy's playing compared to Hydra is just generally going to lead you to have a lower KD.
Yeah.
Because he's doing a lot more of the entry work, whereas Hydra's kind of running around Slane. Hydra had a 1.2 in hardpoint, whereas Abezy, where is he on here? He was much lower. He had a 1.01, so 0.2 higher for Hydra and hardpoint's a pretty significant difference. Although once again, the role that they're playing. Hydra had the best S&D KD in the entire league at a 1.27. Wardy is above him, but I mean, played the one match.
Yeah.
And Abezy was a 1.23. Abezy was obviously fantastic. And I would actually make the argument in that case, that's one of the KD doesn't matter arguments. I would say Abezy overall was the best search and destroy player on the year. His first blood percentage and stuff like that is just absurd.
Yeah.
So I would still say Abezy was the best search and destroy player on the year, but Hydra's right up there with him. And then control KD, we've got Abezy at a 1.1 and Hydra at a 1.09. So basically neck and neck there. But I would say my other argument, maybe you have one, is I think if you take Hydra off of New York and replace him with like a league average sub, whatever that would be. I don't even know. I don't really want to like throw a player out there, but let's just say like you took Hydra out and replaced him with just the average sub. Like I don't even know who would be a good example for that, unless you have one in your mind, maybe.
I don't really have one.
Like I'm trying to think because like there's a lot of good subs in the league. Who's like just like a Havoc? I just saw his name. How about like let's say you took Hydra off New York and inserted Havoc in there. I think they would get a lot worse. I don't think they win a single event.
Yeah.
If you take Havoc, insert him for Abezy, I don't know that they win an event. Also because you Abezy does do a lot for that team. I don't want to discount him, but I think Faze is still a pretty damn good team. They have Cellium, Simp, Havoc, Slasher.
Yeah.
I think they are still a pretty damn good team and could compete. I think they probably make a final or two. I think they're still a very good team. Whereas I think New York take out Hydra and replace them with Havoc. The team gets no wins, that's for sure. And probably not even make a final, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't really see a Havoc's on that team over Hydra.
Yeah, and that is basically the definition of MVP. It isn't technically who was the best player all year, who was the most valuable to their team. And I think it was Hydra. I think the 2 event wins really sealed it for him, which is kind of crazy because he really wasn't on the radar as much. Because when you win in Major 1, the recency bias of it all, people don't really remember you as a candidate. But then he bookended the year, obviously, with a win in the beginning and the end. So shout out to Hydra for that. he's my MVP, but I won't be upset if Abezy wins it. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's super close.
Yeah. Most improved player, that's not an award they actually give out, but we don't even have to really give anyone, but I don't know if maybe you had a shout that you were thinking of for most improved player. So it doesn't have to be like year over year compared to where they were last year. But like maybe there's a player from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. I had like one that came to mind.
Oh, what was yours?
I thought this isn't from last year because he wasn't in the league last year, but I thought Vickle.
Okay.
I thought in the beginning of the year, Vickle really struggled. He was benched. And then by the end of the year, I feel like Vickle established himself as like a mainstay, like CDL sub. Like he could be a submachine gun player in the league for a while. I thought he really improved over the course of the year.
Definitely.
So like that's one of them. Could be somebody year over year also if you had one in mind.
I have one for like year over year, but I also have like just off the top of my head like Hook.
Yeah,
At the end of the year.
Definitely.
Wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I had a Priesta for year over year.
Yeah.
Because last couple years he's been struggling, team not having been success, and now this year 2 wins, and he's been playing pretty good. Besides that.
Yeah. That's one I didn't think of. That is definitely a good shout.
Yeah, those are my 2.
It's hard to think of other ones because like year over year, it's just I don't know. It's just a little bit different. I would say I was gonna say like somebody like even like Octane could be a shout, but he was still so good last year at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, he kind of struggled, but that's like a tough one. One who I just saw when looking at the picture of the teams, I thought of not like a crazy one, but like somebody who I thought improved his stock a lot from last year, TJ.
Yeah.
I thought TJ was a lot better this year. Like in Boston last year, he really was a big struggle at times, even though they had some success. But I thought TJ played very well this year on Legion and proved his worth again, where he was very good in search and started to come around a little bit more in respawn at the end of the year.
Yep, I agree.
Other than that, yeah, nobody really comes to mind. Vickle was the one that really came to mind for me.
Yeah.
Big time.
I was going to say, like, I don't know.
Yeah, but Vickle really improved. Obviously, that's not an award they really give out because that's a tough award with the overall turnover in the league and how many players, go in and out, back and forth. It's tough.
Yeah.
That's it for awards. We can do something that we wanted to do. It's kind of our last hurrah to our teams that are eliminated, but includes all the teams. We're going to be giving out a little mini short report card for each team, only for the regular season. Obviously, we don't know what happens at champs yet. So just for the regular season, a little report card. Going to give each team a grade anywhere from A to down to an F, being the worst. And then maybe give one positive thing that you thought from their season. It could be a placement they had, a run they went on in a certain game mode. They figured out something for their future. Maybe their branding, they did something you like. Doesn't have to be about the game. Something like that, a positive and then a negative. Obviously, for teams like Florida, LAG, those teams, it's going to be a lot easier to find negatives. And maybe you're going to have to dig somewhere for a positive, like going forward for them. But just like a grade, I wouldn't take the grades too seriously. It's just kind of off the top of our head. If you really think that somebody deserves a B plus and we gave them a C plus or a B minus, it's off the top of our head. The grade's not that serious.
It's just
sometimes people like to get really upset when you give their team a grade that they don't agree with. But I gave there's one team I know that people are going to be like, why did you give them that high of a grade? But I'll explain it when I get there. But let's do it. So basically, just going to go in like somewhat of an alphabetical order here. Start with Atlanta. You can go first to this one. Grade for Atlanta. I feel like this one's pretty easy, but what letter grade did you give them?
Give him an A.
Mm-hmm.
Solid A.
I also had an A.
Pretty good year overall.
Yeah.
Players Simp had a better year, I feel like. A little better. Only negative really is they don't ice up they don't really ice up sometimes. But when they need to, which is kind of hard to believe for that calibers of players in the team.
Yeah, they feel like they should be a team that is always closing things out. I'd agree. I also had that as my negative. I feel like a lot of people would say that's their negative. It was they struggled to close events again this year, which to me is I kind of on some of these put like for the positives and negatives put like a twist towards champs because obviously we still have that left to go. But this is just a regular season report card. But yeah, they struggled to close events again this year. Got a lot of seconds. On the positive, at least they did close one of them. But that's scary headed into champs when you've had struggles to close out in the finals.
Yeah.
For my positive, I did say you finished fourth for the fourth, or you finished first for the fourth straight season. You've gotten first every year in the CDL era in terms of regular season standings. And you look poised to make another champs finals. I'm going to go out and say it. What I saw this weekend from Faze, this is a spoiler alert maybe for what I think about champs, but Faze was dominant in respawns, specifically hardpoint. And what has been their worst game mode this year, they have struggled to close out hardpoints, which has always been dumbfounding me this whole year because Simp, Abezy, Cellium, a team with those three players should never struggle to close out hardpoints. Those are closers. They are all closers that make game-winning plays and just outslay teams heavy. I saw that team look very good in control. In Expo, they looked almost unbeatable. I saw them look very good in hardpoint this weekend, and I saw them struggle in search, losing 3 searches to New York in the final. And if there's one game mode I trust that team to fix over any of the others, it's search. They improved their hardpoint, which was their struggle. They improved their control, which was their other struggle. And they struggled in search. I trust them to fix that. I think they look poised to make another finals at champs.
Yep.
You got anything different for positive, or you pretty much have?
No, not really. Just same old Faze, really.
Yeah, it's like clockwork.
Yep.
You can trust them to always be a top 2 team at pretty much all times.
Yep. Literally.
And even like when you doubt that they might be, you're like, they might be third, they might be fourth. Yeah, they're in the final again every time.
Yeah. It always happens somehow, some way.
Yeah. Moving on to Boston. First of all, I'll start with my grade and then I'll say the positive, and then you can maybe do your grade and the positive. I gave them a C+ on the year. So I feel like the grade dropped from where it was like mid-year. I thought maybe I would have given them like maybe a B-, maybe a B. I'll say my positive was I think they found a lot of talent this year on their roster. Like I think Big Wake is very talented. We all knew this. I think they figured out Nero is very talented despite benching him. I think Kremp showed a lot of promise. I think Beans is a really good player with a lot of talent. I just think they have to find a way to make it click or find the right roster combo with all those players or maybe new players. But I'll say that's my positive for them is I think they found a lot of talent and they've proven that they're pretty good at talent evaluation. Also now with Snoopy on their challenger team, he looked very good when I was watching this weekend. I just think they found a lot of talent between Snoopy, Wake, Kremp, Beans. Like I think they've shown as an organization the past 2 years that they're very good at finding those up and coming players. Now they just got to figure out the right combo. So that's kind of what led into the positive grade for me for them.
For Boston, for me, I had a C.
Okay.
And my positive for them was, like you said, a lot of talent they have between academy rosters and regular rosters. Just finding the balance between it all. And I feel like they just need. I was negative, but yeah, I was gonna say my negative, but not. We're doing positive.
You can go ahead with it, but I think we're on the same page for the positive though. It's like you got a lot of talent, just got to figure out the right combo and way to make it click.
Yeah, like you said, that Stu behind the challenge is pretty damn talented. For my negative for Boston, I just feel like they need a true leader to help those players.
Agree. I did not have that, but you're right.
I just don't think really Beans is the leader really of it. Even though he tries to be as much as he can.
Yeah, I wonder where that. We don't have to get into this too long because I don't want to spend too much time on like future stuff. That's all the stuff we'll talk about in the off season. But I mean, you brought up a great point. I wonder because I feel like you're going to keep Beans and Wake on this team likely because they both showed so much talent as AR flex. Does that come in the form of like a veteran submachine gun player being added to this team that can maybe bring more in the comms in place of like I feel like they're going to keep Kremp or Nero. For some reason, I feel like Vivid's gone on this team after the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I wonder, does Vivid get maybe replaced with like the first guy that came to mind is like a Bance type player that's more of a leader. It might not be Bance, but just like somebody that can bring more in the comms as a submachine gun player or something. I don't know, but it's definitely a good shout out. I do feel like maybe this team does lack a little bit of veteran leadership and know-how in the game.
Yeah, I feel like also when they're not having the best games, they still get too hectic and nothing, just can't really figure it out.
Yeah, don't have that guy to calm them down and get everybody level-headed and ready to go.
Yeah.
Mine kind of plays into the same thing as you, but it was my negative for them was what a lot of people would say. It's just that lack of consistency. They couldn't find it at times. Like when they beat OpTic, at what was that Major 3? They would look incredible,
so.
and then they would have times like this weekend where they were finishing top 12 and just looking awful. They just barely squeaked into champs. Just like that negative for me is that lack of consistency. They had the talent, but it's just like they just couldn't put it together. One match they would look fantastic like they did against OpTic, beating them in winners round 1, and it's like, okay, Boston, time for you to make a run. Can you get a top 3? And they would just bottom out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We move on to Florida though. A team obviously that didn't make champs. Now, in terms of like our alphabetical order thing here, we've got a bunch of teams in a row that didn't make champs. We can maybe fly through these, but Florida, I did not give an F. Although a couple teams that didn't make champs got an F. I gave Florida a D. My positive for them is if they don't go with all Spanish rumored Heretics roster, which I'm assuming they probably are, because usually those rumors that come out like that are pretty accurate. But let's say they don't. I believe for being a pretty low budget team, they have a pretty formidable sub duo to pair with hopefully 2 new ARs or an AR and a flex next year for the team. I think Vickle and Capsidal is a pretty formidable sub duo and a very good search and destroy sub duo. Those are 2 players that are very good at search. And we all know the players that tend to make the most are those submachine gun players because they're the most impactful, important players in Call of Duty. So as a low budget team, we know Florida doesn't really pay out big salaries. I think that's almost as good of a sub duo as you can get.
Yeah, for the price.
Obviously, yeah, there are a lot better sub duos you can get overall, but when you're paying pretty low contracts, I feel like that's about as good as you're going to get of a sub duo. So I think that's a positive for them is that duo could make some noise if you pair them with a couple new ARs next year.
Yeah. Florida for me, I gave them a D plus since they did fight all year. They didn't really just give up like kind of like LAG a little bit towards the end, middle way through. Like you said, I'm excited for the Heretics brand to come in, Spanish side.
Absolutely.
Do they even keep Capsidal? That's only like really my question.
Yeah, I mean, based on those rumors, it doesn't sound like it. I was just kind of acting like I hadn't heard that and being like,
yeah,
that guy is good. I knew he was good. I was shocked he wasn't on a roster to start the year. I couldn't believe when I saw that, like in the beginning of the year. I always thought Capsidal was so talented. I was shocked when he was benched at times last year. I really just was he benched? Am I thinking of it wrong? Was he benched last year at times?
Yeah,
Nero. Yeah, he got benched.
Yeah, he got benched.
I was shocked when that happened. I just think Cap is I just look at Cap and I just see like such a good player. I think like the aggression he brings and the slang upside he has is just so good. He's going to be on a roster next year. It might not be Mutineers or Florida, obviously, because they might be switching to that all Spanish roster. But yeah, he's a hell of a player, and Vickle's also a hell of a player too.
Yeah, agree.
My negative, obviously, the whole year couldn't make winners bracket till the end. I truly believe bad roster decisions early on hurt the team pretty immensely. I think benching Vickle early on for Havoc really hurt them in terms of just the development of the team.
Yeah, also
and seeing things grow. Like it stunted Vickle's growth, and maybe that could have helped you a little bit more.
Yeah. So
I would like to see that get fixed.
Yeah, for me, it was just didn't make champs, pay a low budget, so kind of figure you don't pay high, you're not gonna really make champs or make a run unless the players go absolutely off. And bringing in Dave Paddy for like a week, really.
Yeah, that's another one. Those questionable roster decisions. Yeah, bad decisions stunted their growth. I feel like early on, it just didn't make a lot of sense. Their first year without Skies and Wake in the CDL era, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the Heretics roster or Heretics brand coming in if that ends up coming true.
Yep, I agree.
Then we move on to London. This is one of the teams I gave an F. I will say for the negative side, your point is 100% true. I didn't put it down, but like you said with Florida, how they fought to the end, I didn't feel like London fought as much to the end. For the negative, I literally wrote down pick your poison. You can go a lot of ways for negative with this team. I'll honestly say the one I thought was the lack of team cohesion and like their public disagreements when it went like public with Scraps tweeting about how they don't listen to each other and like they hate getting on and like they don't play together at all. Like maybe it's like the team sports in me, but I just have never been a fan of like when things like that get out of the locker room.
Yeah.
I just like that was like the negative for me is like I hate when teams disagreements like and lack of cohesion go public. So that was my negative. My positive was, at the very least, Nasty does seem to be a player. I truly believe that. Like, if he had a good team around him, Nasty seems to be a player you could build around. I also will always believe in Asim as a player to build around, but I don't know if they'll retain both. But like, I do believe that Nasty, you can build around that player if you get a bunch of good players around him. And like Abezy is an EU player that a lot of people think London could sign. So like, I feel like if you did have like a Abezy, Nasty, Asim start with another good player, I feel like you could maybe make a little noise and take a crack at champs next year.
Yeah. London, I also gave an F. Towards the end, they did fight after all the drama happened.
Yeah.
Nothing really much to it. It's what happens when you don't really pay a lot as well. Tend to be at the bottom. But Asim, he was kind of a stand-up player with Nasty.
Yeah. It's like they have at least, it's not like they're a completely lost cause because they have pieces you could see being good on the right team going forward. But yeah, it's just overall a struggle.
My negative was really drama, and I feel like they made Paul run the sub.
Yeah.
A lot of the time when he wasn't really locked in, checked in, so they should have definitely moved him a lot earlier than they did.
Yeah, it was just, the team seemed to be chalked pretty early on. It was a team that you could tell pretty quickly probably wasn't going to make much noise, and didn't seem like they were super urgent to do anything about it, and really couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's a tough year from London.
Yep. Hopefully better next year.
Yeah, because they are a fun brand, and we know that London and that UK fan base is a great fan base. So hopefully they are better next year.
Agreed.
Then we got LAG, Brock, your boys. This probably be another pretty quick one. I gave him an F. My positive, Joe Thieves is a beast. I strongly believe that. I also think obviously Arcitys is a very good player. Now we'll have to see how contracts work. If it's a new organization coming in with ownership, I don't know exactly. Do the contracts get voided? Are they all free agents? We have no idea. But let's just operate under the assumption that the contracts are still there, where Arcitys had the 3-year deal. Joe, I would assume, would have a +1 option on his since he signed like mid-season from the academy team. So let's just assume that whatever new organization picks them up, they still have the contracts. I would say Joe Thieves is a beast. I think you can absolutely build around him as your star SMG player. And also Arcitys, like, let's not pretend like he's not still really good. I think Arcitys is still a very good player. You got him under contract. I really think a duo of Arcitys and Joe Thieves get another good sub and a good flex. I think, personally, you run it back, you pick up Gunless. I think you get Arcitys and Gunless back together. Get Joe Thieves a good sub duo. I think there's a path where this team could be competitive again pretty quickly next year.
I agree with that.
My negative was just organization imploded around them, and that's all I got to say.
Yeah, that's a tough one for the team overall. LAG, F, like you said, Joe Thieves, Arcitys. Even though Arcitys did have a kind of a bad year, you gotta get good situation for Arcitys is he plays a lot better.
Yeah, I'm not doubting that he's a good player at all. I agree with you. I think give him the right situation, give him a good team. I think he'll be right back to one of the top ARs.
He did he did most of what he could with the team, especially with the Oregon floating as a negative. So yeah, really, whoever picks him up, wherever, Joe Thieves and Arcitys, like you said, should be a pretty good duo. Unless they just wanna scrap it and then they go to different teams.
Yep, I agree. Then you got anything else for like a negative, or we move on?
Oh, negative. Imploding of the org.
Yeah. Really, it's hard to say anything else, really.
Yeah, made him not be able to do literally anything or roster changes or anything like that.
Yeah, they couldn't even make one if they wanted to because they don't have anybody to pay for it or actually make it.
Yeah, so that was definitely tough. Definitely tough for the players as well, which kind of sucks, but
100%.
Yeah, nothing else really.
Yeah, then we got LAT, the other LA team, obviously kind of opposite end of the spectrum. I do feel like, we've been pretty much the same. We were the same on Atlanta, very close on Boston, same on Florida, basically, same on the last two. I feel like LAT is where we could differ, though. I can see a world where they're in the Bs. I give them an A-, simply because they broke the Champs Curse, which nobody had ever done, obviously. That was why it was called the Champs Curse. And they also got another second. So, they had 2 top 2 finishes, 1 championship. That was my positive for them, was broke the Champs Curse. Negative was just that online inconsistency. Again, they just couldn't figure it out and be consistently dominant online, which is, once again, what separates the Fazes from everybody else is their consistent dominance and finishing top 3 or better on LAN, while also always finishing in winners bracket in the top 4 in online.
Yeah. For LET, for me, I gave him a B plus since they did break the champs curse. They won a tournament, got second.
Yep.
And my negative really about them is, like you said, the online qualifier just don't seem to click for some odd reason.
They just can never just be consistently good. It's like they're always good for 1 or 2 losers brackets a year because they're going to struggle online.
It's like they needed an incentive for the online qualifiers only within the organization or something for them to actually like get motivated and play. It seems like
write it into their contract where they get an extra $1,000 for every online win or something.
Yeah, something, because like these players are really, really good on land, just online something. It's about it.
And like I get that it is, I 100% can see, especially for a team that's won a world championship and won multiple LAN events, I can see how it's hard to lock it online. But like I get you're a LAN team, but like when you go 1-4 online and you start in losers, you're also giving yourself a disadvantage at LAN where you feel comfortable. Like this weekend, if they would have started in winners, who knows? They might have done a lot better. But they had no room for error and they get a top 6.
Yeah. Play a good team in Ultra, close maps, 3-0.
Yeah.
But if they're in winners, they have another chance to come back, but no.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I definitely, this is where I thought we could differ. Like I can see a world where you put them in the Bs because of that inconsistency, but I can also see a world, making it to 2 of 5 grand finals and winning one of them is pretty good. So I put him in A- just for that reason, because also the champs curse had never been broken.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Minnesota. You want to go first for this one? You can just go through it all: grade, positive, negative. This is another interesting one. I feel like there's a spectrum you could put them on here.
Minnesota, I gave them for the overall year. They've been a little bit better. I gave them a C plus.
Okay.
Had some ups and downs, some roster changes, but overall they made the most of it for the positives. Got top 3. Negatives is negative is really putting Fame on an AR role when he was frying in challenges with a sub, and then for a whole month, and now they switched it back and bring attach back, which shouldn't have done that in the beginning. But obviously, don't really want to bring Afro since he is your superstar SMG player. But some things weren't working out with him, the team cohesion and all that. So those are mine.
You could just copy and paste what you said. Is literally what I wrote down, pretty much. I gave him a C plus, exact same. I said the same thing. You made a great top 3 run at the end to secure champs and hold off Legion. That's got to be the positive for this team. Is it looked like they were going to choke away their lead they had on Vegas, but they didn't. They kept them at arm's length the whole time, and they clutched up on LAN when they needed to. My negative was the same thing. Questionable roster changes, I think, stunted the growth of this team. I think will cost them in the end at champs. I think they're just going to be a little bit behind those top teams. Whereas, like, I also agree with you, though. It was hard. It was hard to bench Afro. I think even when they did it, it was hard to bench him because he is viewed by the public and everyone as your superstar, because talent-wise, he probably is their overall mechanical skill most talented player.
Yeah.
But like we've seen before with certain teams, like you bench, it was like we saw with Toronto is another good example. Like Standy mechanically, I would say, is more talented than Hexy.
Yeah.
But Hexy just fit what they needed better. Dirty work, comms, just smart overall play, playing your life. That's more what Toronto needed. The chemistry he had with those guys. Sometimes like that just helps you a little bit. You need that chemistry more than just pure individual talent. But I get why it was tough. But like, yeah, bench and attach never seems like the right reason or right thing to do. But yeah, the questionable roster changes is the negative for me. I think it's going to end up costing them at champs because they're going to be a little bit behind with how late they made the swap. But overall, a solid year to at least clutch up and qualify and get back to champs where they belong, because they did not qualify for champs last year.
Yeah, that is true. They did do it this year.
The way to make the improvement. Next team, NYSL. Feel like it's hard to not give them an A. Before this weekend, they wouldn't have gotten an A for the year. They probably would have gotten more like a B plus. I could have given them an A plus and put them ahead of Faze, who was the only team so far that I've given an A. I will say the reason I keep them the same is because of the inconsistency at the other tournaments. So they do win 2 events, the only team to do so. In my opinion, they have the MVP on their team. The big thing they did was they erased that turmoil. Remember how bad that organization sounded with Crim
But
saying all that stuff, like D-Real and Crim and like the organization. There was a lot of turmoil. It sounded like they kind of erased that. Seemed to be a pretty good org. It seems like the team is more locked in. There was a lot of questions about Hydra's motivation. Well, clearly, it seemed like he had that this year. If they get some consistency out of their ARs, watch out. That we saw this weekend, like they've been inconsistent most of the year. So my negative for them was that inconsistency I talked about. They got a top 8 and a dead last in there, which really hurt what could have been an even crazier year. Let's say they get a couple top 4s, they would have had a couple top 4s, 2 wins. Like it would have been a lot better if they could have just erased those top 8 and top 12s.
Yeah.
That they got. And the other thing was, like I said, the inconsistency of the ARs. I just felt like Kismet at times was just so good for his role. Hydra obviously is probably the MVP or right up there. He was so good, but I felt like Skies and Priester were just up and down a little bit. And if they would have been more consistent, man, this team could have had a dominant year.
Yeah, it's for them. It's like they never had both good games at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
New York, I gave them A-.
Okay.
They won 2 tournaments this year, first and last. Like you said, Hydra, for what they say about him, he wins 2 now. He's a winning player.
Yeah, 3 events now too. If you include that pro-am from last year, 3-time champ.
Yeah, definitely. Kismet, I thought Kismet and Hydra didn't really like each other at the end of last year, but seems like they're doing fine. And I actually really loved when they brought in Skies, since Skies and Hydra are kind of close. Maybe the Skies feeds into Hydra, so they tell him to lock in, all that stuff.
Sky seems like a great teammate too.
Yeah, he does whatever. I would want to team with Skies if I played with him. That's for damn sure.
He's always gassing you up. He seems like he doesn't really lose full. He seems like he brings good vibes too. Like I feel like I would feel confident in good play next to Skies. Like he doesn't ever like. If you're doing bad, I feel like he's not the guy to call you out or like make his call outs change to like be annoyed with you. I feel like he's just even keeled, gasses you up. I feel like he brings good vibes. He seems like a good teammate.
Yeah, I agree. Negatives, like you said, inconsistency with them. In the first, maybe they'll drop off a little bit. I think they placed top 12 then.
Yeah, rough.
But yeah, overall, really, a New York team I did not think was going to win 2 events if I started the year. For some reason.
Yeah, I would agree. I will say though, like the other guy that needs a shout on this team, you already talked about Priestess, so I'll give the other guy is Kismet.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Kismet in IW when I first learned of him was on a team. I can't remember what team it was on. I wanted to say it was Straight Rippin', but it might not have been Straight Rippin'. No, because that's what the team that Dashy ended up on at Champs. But anyways, they were on some team. I can't remember who it was. He was teaming with Nagafen. I remember they were up 2-0 and Kismet got up and he was talking crazy to whoever they were playing. They got reverse swept. Didn't qualify for Champs. Actually, that wasn't IW. I think that was World War II I'm thinking of, actually. Yeah, it was World War II. He was on some team. They didn't qualify. They got reverse swept. Kismet was talking a lot of trash. Got screamed back at. For some reason, in my head, I think he was playing Looney. I could be completely wrong. No, he couldn't have been playing Looney in World War II. Never mind. Ignore what I'm saying. But Kismet didn't qualify, and I remember like, oh, whatever. That's a player that seemed good, but didn't qualify for Champs. Okay, move on. He goes to Black Ops 4, eventually finds himself on E6, gets a top 4 at Champs, fries that event. I'm like, Kismet, that's a good player to watch going forward. Then going into MW, he joins Legion. They have an absolutely abysmal year, and he kind of drops out of the league. In Cold War, he's in Challengers, just grinding his way. And then he finds himself with an opportunity to join a New York Subliners team in Vanguard that was abysmal. They were awful.
Yeah.
He instantly turns that team around. They win the Pro-Am. They qualify for Champs. He looks like a great player. He comes into this year. It's like, okay, Kismet, this is your prove it year. And he is like the perfect complement for Hydra. They make so much sense together as a sub duo. It's like he does every little dirty work thing that needs to be done to let Hydra shine, and he doesn't complain about it. He just does it. And also, he has the ability to pop off sometimes, too. He can take over a map sometimes, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's like the perfect role player sub. He'll do everything to make Hydra's life easy, while also, he'll He'll show up for you when you need to. He'll get hype. He'll bring good comms, and he's a pretty good search and destroy player. He's like the perfect duo for Hydra, and I think I can see this team making a run going forward if Skies and Priesta can play consistent.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times when we're watching this weekend, Hydra be like 26 kills and Kids would be like 23 there, right with them. Love to see
Yeah,
it.
or Hydra would be like you said, 26 and 20 slaying, and Kids would be 30 and 30, just
Yeah.
setting pace.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Like
It's crazy how to imagine Kids was out of the league last year before he joins Vanguard.
And he revived his career. Like he came in, he had a lot of pressure to turn around that New York team, and if he didn't make that happen, he probably was gonna not get a chance again because he is, a little bit older. He's been around for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And he took that chance and he ran with it. I'm a big fan of Kiz. I really didn't know too much about him like before he joined Subliners in Vanguard last year, but I'm a big fan. He is like the perfect player to pair next to any of those superstars. Like if he was paired with Pred, I think they'd be an amazing duo.
Mm-hmm.
Pair him with like a Shotzi, even a Hook, one of those two. Any superstar submachine gun player, you pair him with them, I feel like he just makes life easier for them. And like I said, when I would see Hydra was 30 and 19 on a map, and then I see Kiz was 28 and 32, I love it. I love him setting that pace, just running in front of Hydra, get one, let Hydra clean up the rest.
Yep.
He's a perfect player. I love Kismet. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I think he's just such a fundamentally sound player, and he'll drop his 0.9, but it is the most fundamentally sound reason you're winning 0.9 ever.
Yeah. Now he's a 3-time champ within a year and a half.
Yeah. And a mainstay CDL player, deservingly so.
Yep.
Right. Let's move on to OpTic. Maybe a different tune to sing here. I think this is one of my more controversial grades for people. I'm interested to hear what you have. How about you go first this one?
OpTic for this year. I did give him an A.
Okay.
A minus, I should say.
I was gonna say if you gave him more than NYSL at an A minus, I would be a little crazy.
Yeah. I did give him A minus since they did bounce back after really the unexpected loss of Scumpy.
Mm-hmm.
Which they had to find their footing for a bit, but after they found Ghosty, they've been pretty damn dominant besides just, back-to-back seconds. I only want to get first, so that's the first. OpTic, they always want first, but that's not how it always works. But overall, really a good year for what all happened.
Yeah.
And my negative is maybe coming out better in grand finals and getting that W champs.
Mm-hmm.
But all we really have for OpTic since they were pretty damn good.
Yeah, I have a different grade. It's close. It's very close. As close as you can get. I put them down to a B plus. The reason being, spoiler alert, the only team we haven't talked about. I have Toronto at an A. That's one of the teams I gave an A. I obviously gave NYSL an A. I talked about giving LAT an A minus, and then I gave Faze an A. The common denominator there is Faze, LAT, NYSL, and Toronto. They all won events. To me, I feel like I couldn't put anybody in the A minus or above if they didn't win an event. So that's why I dropped OpTic down to a B plus. My positive for them was they really had a stretch there where they looked like the best team. Like you could not argue for that online, basically like the end of Major 4 into the online stretch of Major 5 where LAT fell off in the online stretch. You could not make an argument that OpTic wasn't the best team. Like they were clearly going into Major 5 the best team. Obviously, we saw what happened there, but yeah, that was my positive for them. And I also agreed with you. I said they really navigated the Scump retirement well. I mean, you're not only losing a good player in Scump unexpectedly, but it's also the face of Call of Duty esports. Just lost him unexpectedly mid-year, and they really bounced back and they really got better after he was gone. So that they navigated that very well. My negative was, like you said, inability to finish. 2 seconds in an absolutely embarrassing Major 5. Was really negative for this team. They just couldn't finish it. But like you said, maybe they're saving it for the big one. This is another one of those kind of incomplete grades like the other teams that are at champs that have a chance to make a run. But I just couldn't get them into that A range considering they hadn't won an event.
Yeah. Very fair.
All right, Seattle. One that fluctuated. I mean, shoot, after Major 1, we thought it was maybe an A, then it maybe dropped to a D, and then it was back up to an A, and then it was a C. And it's like, this one has been all over the place like their year. I gave them a C. For my positive, I said you had flashes where you looked really good and looked like you might be a top team. I still think the upset potential is there for champs. Unfortunately for them, like we mentioned earlier, they get a brutal bracket, but I think they still do have upset potential at champs because you always have Pred and Sib who can just take over. Accuracy is a good clutch player, good leader. And I still believe Mac to be an X factor, no matter how bad he's been recently. My negative does involve Mac, though. I think my negative is not pulling the trigger on roster moves when they needed to happen. You could have easily pulled it this year. You probably could have picked up Arcitys. Apparently, Krim was begging to get on this team in the offseason. You could have pulled the trigger to get a new main AR instead of accuracy, maybe somebody with a little bit more slaying upside, like an Arcitys, like a Krim 6. You didn't pull the trigger. I'm fine with it because I do like accuracy, but like then midseason when you maybe should have tried to make a move to replace Mac when he really was struggling towards Major 4, you didn't do it because you wanted to stick with team cohesion, which I get. And I could still see them getting a decent placement at champs, like I said, but I think my negative is not being aggressive. And when you had maybe a chance to upgrade, you just go all in because this is probably your last year with Sib and Pred, to be honest. So to me, you should have pulled the trigger and tried to go all in because this is probably the best chance maybe ever Seattle will have to win a ring when you have a Sib and Pred in your team.
Yeah, two star players, Helby players. Seattle, I put a C plus.
Okay.
Like you said, they did show flashes at the year. They did make the finals against New York, but they did lose it. Really, Pred and Sib was a positive for the most of the year.
Yep.
I could see had his flashes. Mac did have his flashes early in the year, but Mac started struggling. But my negatives, or like you said, they did not pull the trigger after it was at Major 4 when they lost. Which I really wanted them to get a scene because I feel like a scene would help Pred a lot. And like you said, Pred and Sib, likely last year with the team since, all that deal that happened before the offseason. And yeah, let's see if they can make a run.
Yeah. I'm one of the teams I like Sib and Pred and I like accuracy a lot. Everybody knows you and I are like maybe the most vocal accuracy supporters out there that talk Call of Duty. We're two of the biggest vocal accuracy supporters. So I'm also hoping to see this team make a run because I also think it'd be crazy if they somehow knocked Faze to losers. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm kind of rooting for this team a little bit. But yeah, inconsistency was the name of the game for this team, like a lot of teams. We're down to our last two teams, though, Brock. Toronto, I already spoiled what I gave them. It's an A for me. They won an event as a positive, obviously. Scrappy is the clear rookie of the year. And I think the big positive for me is as we look forward, no matter what they do at champs, unless they like get 06 map count or something at champs, I really think they have a team that can translate game to game really well. We've seen Kleenex and Insight as a duo on this team since Insight was subbed in Cold War. We've seen them consistently as a very good top team in Cold War. They were also consistently a very good contending team, at least in Vanguard. Even though they fell off a little bit from Cold War, they were still up there, always in contention, always making some noise. And then this year, again, we see them in a position to win events, get a lot of high placements. I think they'll translate really well game to game too. I think Insight's a steady main AR. I think Kleenex's aggression is always good. I think Hecz a smart player that pairs well with Kleenex. And then I think Scrap's going to be a superstar in every game. And I think the other positive was they took a big risk dropping Standy. A lot of people were like, what are they doing when they drop Standy? Because he's such a mechanically skilled and good player. But clearly they knew what they were doing and it paid off because they immediately won an event after dropping him. So that's a positive for me. Like I said, if I'm going to criticize Seattle for not taking a risk and making a roster move, I have to credit Toronto for taking that risk and making that roster move because it definitely paid off. Regardless of if we thought it was right at the time, they made the change and they won an event immediately. So you got to give them credit for that.
Definitely.
My only negative was they had a couple tourneys where I feel like the run could have been deeper, where they bowed out. I will give them, I mean, they got a top 4. I really feel like they should have made the finals in this last event. But they got a top 4 and they had an absolute gauntlet. There was a couple tournaments where they bowed out early. They started in the losers right after winning. So a couple situations there where they maybe could have made a little bit more noise, but overall just not a lot of negatives. I was kind of really having to dig for negatives because this team had a great year.
Yeah. Toronto, I also gave it A. It said, Scrappy, they found the Cammy replacement for Scrappy, which is a big W for the year. And also, good placements. Won a tournament. And I just love Insight. He's just like so icy. Like, oh man, just like so icy.
He always guarantees one, which is a big. Everybody knows. Not that many people know about my style of Call of Duty because obviously we don't never like streamed or like played in front of an audience or anything. But I love that Insight. He always guarantees one. He's gonna get his kill and make sure he doesn't go down without a fight.
Just plays so correct too, and with clinics, the pace he plays at, it can sometimes it can be hurtful, but for most part, it helps the team a lot, especially with Scrappy, the new guy.
You live and die by Kleenex. If he has his 15 and 30 game, you just accept that because eventually he's gonna have his 38 and 20 game where he just pops off at that pace.
Like you said, the Hecz for Standy, I kind of forgot that Hecz played with Scrappy and the Challengers team like last year, so they were just more comfortable for Scrappy, and they have a little beef with Standy.
Yeah,
but yeah, Toronto pretty damn good team all year, like you said. For negatives, really, I feel like they could have got farther in some tournaments.
Yeah,
as well, and I don't really have a lot of negatives really. It's
a hard team to come up with negatives. They made the right roster changes. They had a great year. They have an award-winning player and rookie of the year. It's hard to come up with negatives. They just didn't have that many bad moments.
Yeah, but not negatives. And Toronto just overall, good org. Love it.
Yep. And then our last team to end the episode here, a bit of a long one today, but Las Vegas Legion. This was the one I thought was going to be a debatable grade for me. And I will say for this team, my grade doesn't go as much on the year they had, but more for the org standpoint. I actually gave them a B. And I know that's going to be wild because I kind of graded them on a different criteria. I mean, I put them over Seattle, Minnesota, and Boston, who qualify for champs. I get that. That sounds crazy. But for me, this was not as much based on their year because obviously those other teams had a better year. They qualified for champs and Vegas didn't. So in terms of a just this year grade, I guess I could give them, that C minus, D plus because they didn't qualify. But I gave them a B because literally my positive is that they changed the culture of an absolute loser franchise.
Yep.
I mean, this team was the losers of losers. They got 20 CDL points last year, was it? They won 2 matches.
Yep, they got 20.
The entire season. Like, they got no points basically last year. They had never really won anything. They went to one home series finals in MW. They were just basically at a laughing stock. We're never in contention. They pick up Clay. They kind of changed the perception of their franchise. They were in it right until the end, the chance to make champs. And now they're not just viewed as a complete laughing stock loser franchise. It sounds like Clay got in there and he maybe changed the mind of the owners and got them to buy in and spend a little bit more cash and make a couple midseason changes. And that's why I gave them a B, because they finally changed the culture from just being here to be here and literally not even be a 12th team to finally try. The negative is obvious though. Didn't complete the champs run and struggled on land down the stretch.
Yep. I gave him a C plus Vegas. Clay really, changed the organization around really. Him and Donnie. And, Thieves has moments. And I like the pickup of maybe spending a little bit more cash, but picking up Standy to help
getting that more slaying.
Get to feel the champs run potentially, but obviously they didn't end up making it. Negative is really just they're basically the Saudi Q Warriors from what I saw from online to LAN. That hurts to say.
Yeah, they struggled on LAN the last couple of tourneys there where they had a chance to really make up some ground and make champs. Because some of the teams that they were trying to catch up to, Boston and Seattle especially, they really bottomed out at the end and gave Vegas a chance to make it back in there.
Yep.
The only other thing I have on this team before we wrap up is Clay. Please come back, even if it's not for Legion. I don't want to see Clay retire. Clay has still got it. He's still a top tier main AR, in my opinion. I still think he's in the top half of the main ARs in the league. He's a very good player. He's still got the gunny. He's obviously got the intangibles and the leadership. I really hope he comes back. I've jokingly said it, if Faze doesn't win champs, I really just wish they would just pick up Clay and run it back with the Tiny Terrors and then play with Cellium. I think it'd be funny, and I think that they would actually really benefit from having Clay again. But Clay, please don't retire. I really would like to see. He's like the last of the OGs really in the league, with Crim and Scump now both gone.
Yep.
I really hope Clay comes back. I don't want to see him retire. He still can definitely keep doing it.
Yeah, Clay coming back for what? Don't have to be Vegas, but some team, and excited to see what Vegas does next year.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Clay's on the 1+1, so I would think they probably can technically control Clay's rights and keep him on the team. But even if they decide to be good to Clay if he doesn't want to play there anymore or wants to find a new team and they let him go or something, I don't think Clay will have a lack of offers. I think he will definitely have a couple teams hitting him up for his services next year.
Yeah, stand with Donnie too, probably.
Oh yeah, Standy will for sure too. Tej, I just don't know. Tej, it seems like some people don't really trust him because of the inconsistencies, but I still think Tej could be a winning player on the right team.
Yeah, definitely.
Right situation.
Right team. Yeah, good.
Yeah. All right. This is a bit of a longer episode, but it was a fun. I think the report card stuff, talking about the year in review for a couple teams, is a fun conversation. But we can wrap it up unless you got anything else.
No, I'm just excited for champs to go to and watch that in person. Really.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really hoping, like we said, all the 3-0s were out. We're going to see only game 5s. I'm going to try to speak it into existence. Gonna be a couple weeks though before champs, so Brock and I will brainstorm off the podcast. We'll figure out what exactly we want to do. Maybe we'll do our final tier list of players. Maybe we'll do a player tier list. We haven't done one in a long time. Maybe we'll do one heading into champs where we rank players or something. But we've got next week's episode where we'll probably do something else because we'll save our predictions probably until that Monday, June 12th, right before champs. So we'll have to figure out something for next week, but we'll figure it out. If you guys enjoy this one, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Like I said, I think we're at 990, 991 on YouTube for the sub. So if you're listening and you enjoyed, even if you're on the audio platforms, there's a link in there to go to YouTube. Go drop a sub on there. Help us hit our 1,000 goal. We'd really appreciate it. If you're on the audio platforms, drop that 5-star review. We really appreciate all the support. Like I said, it was pretty crazy on the last one. And as we wrap up the regular season, it was another very successful year, and the support was wild. Looking forward, like Brock said, to head to champs again this year. So we appreciate all the support. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and we will see you next week and then the week after with our final predictions for the MW2 season. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.